Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Coming up, Business Secretary Alok Sharma on the state of talks between, of course, the United Kingdom and the European Union, as it would appear we move into extra time. Alan Wandsworth, though, phoned in to talk about the possibility of a £3.50 a day charge, a boundary charge into London. Al, your view on that idea from the Mayor Khan? Good morning.
Nick, totally, this charge is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, we're going through exceptional times at the moment, and the last thing you want to do is penalise people. To be honest with you, I'm in an area which actually made Sadiq Khan, and basically I remember him as being the MP and supporting people and being a human rights lawyer, and I'm all for London people. All he's done is basically negativity towards Londoners. He's not liked here at all in the area that he lives in. When you sort of trundle around in a £150,000 Range Rover telling people to sort of become green when you don't practice what you preach is outrageous. He's an embarrassment as a mayor. Wow. And just, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think there's anyone credible running for London mayor, which is a shame. Just as a protest vote, I will not be voting for the bloke because I'm sick and tired of his ways.
How is he to address a £2 billion shortfall in the TfL budget, though, lastly, Al?
I totally get it, Nick. I do get it. I know there's a shortfall. I'm not obviously an economist or a politician to sort of say how this bad. There are other means and ways of actually getting this shortfall, perhaps having some sort of dialogue with the government to sort of make that. In a way, he's also used perhaps as a scapegoat to sort of bring in all these negative charges. But to actually penalise the man on the street, we're promoted to go out and buy electric cars. But how can we afford electric cars when we're constantly paying these charges? To give you an idea, my 21-minute journey to drop, because of the pandemic, I've got to drop kids off in every possible way to sort of, safeguard others and my own kids. It takes me 58 minutes, and I only do half the journey because half the journey they have to walk.
I know journalists have shot up by an extraordinary amount. Al, I have to finish there to move on to other matters. Thank you. We will try and return to this conversation. There's a lot of anger, and I will try and reflect that, but we must move to other matters. Thank you. And away from matters really of London, more of a national and indeed international importance, the state of talks. We move into extra time, as some of the headlines say. Business Secretary Conservative MP Alok Sharma joins me now. What do you understand to be the progress of talks? There seems to be in the headlines, Mr Sharma, a sense that there is a bit of ground being made up. Is that what you're picking up? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I see you started with a footballing analogy there. But I'm sure we'll talk about that at the end.
We'll talk about your beloved Reading. We shall indeed, Mr Sharma.
We will. But look, as the Prime Minister set out yesterday, we want to go the extra yard. We need to make sure that we have these discussions. And, of course, we've reached that agreement with the EU to continue the dialogue. But as I've said on your programme previously, we do remain apart in a number of areas. But, of course, if we're going to do a deal, it must be on the basis that the EU recognises that we're a sovereign nation and that we're an independent nation.
So do you think this could go all the way to December the 31st, Secretary of State?
Well, we've also always said that the transition period comes to an end at the end of December. There will be no discussions beyond that. Of course, there's a practical issue that, if we do reach an agreement, that has to go through Parliament. But, of course, Parliament's shown that it can act very quickly. I understand that for businesses as well, they will be looking to see what sort of arrangement we reach. So I hope we can get there before that point.
But as Business Secretary, what are your views of a possible no deal?
Well, I think we will prosper on WTO terms, and I've been on your programme in the last few weeks.
Has any business actually said that to you, Secretary of State? Has any business man or woman said, I can't wait for a WTO deal?
Well, as you will have heard, there are businesses that, of course, supported the vote to leave the European Union. But you're asking me specifically what sort of things people have said they're going to, why this is positive. Of course, we're going to have control of our borders, our monies, our laws. But as I said, I've also been on your programme in the last few weeks and talked about the green industrial revolution, the money that the government, alongside the private sector, is putting into renewables and a whole range of other technologies. And I've talked to investors in those sectors.
Right.
They want to invest in the UK, and that will happen, of course, irrespective of the type of arrangement we reach with the EU.
Yes, but specifically to a WTO deal, I sense you've not had any positive input on that idea.
Well, look, we're working, Nick, on the basis that we want to try and reach a deal which is a Canada-style deal. We want to do so on the basis of zero tariffs, zero quotas, and that's what we're working very hard towards.
Right, I thought Canada deal was virtually gone. I thought we moved on to Australia. We're working our way around the Commonwealth.
I think we've had this discussion before, Nick, but as I said, what we are looking for is trying to negotiate a deal right now which is zero quota, zero tariff.
How successful was Operation Stack on Friday?
You will have to give me a bit more information. Operation Stack.
You know what Operation Stack is, don't you?
I'm afraid you'll have to enlighten me. I may well know the details of it, but the phrase Operation Stack.
That to be what happens in the event of there being considerable congestion at Dover, and we have to park vehicles.
Oh, right, okay.
Wasn't that I know as Operation Stack?
Well, no, sure. So just on the point about ports.
We trialled it on Friday, as I'm sure you're aware, the Kent Coast and Kent Police. Did you get from it what you required? Because obviously people are very aware and very concerned about Dover and other ports.
They are concerned about Dover and other ports, and of course there's been the whole issue at the moment in terms of ports overall, and some of that of course has been caused by the fact that we've had disruption as a result of COVID, where you've seen shipping and containers not being in the right places. But we are working with the ports, we're working with the sector to make sure this works. And actually, if you look at the arrangements that have been put in place, we've made sure that there are 45 centres around the UK where hauliers can get information. Right. We've made sure that we are investing in customs infrastructure, making sure that we are providing funding for customs intermediaries. So all of that work is ongoing currently.
My apologies. It's now called Operation Brock. It was not, because I come from Kent.
Yes,
so I
Operation
knew,
Brock I'm aware of.
It used to be, I promise you, it used to be known as Stack, because I come from Kent, so I know the Kent. But my apologies, Secretary. I wasn't trying to mislead you. It's Operation Brock now. So we'll park that one. Talking about vehicles as we are, there's a suggestion from the London Mayor Sadiq Khan, and this very much plays to your brief as Business Secretary. People could be charged £3.50 as a sort of boundary charge to come from an outer county such as Kent or Essex or Sussex into London. What might that do to business?
Obviously, we want to make sure that it is easy for businesses to travel. But I think I heard one of your listeners just before who was on talking about. He wasn't impressed, but he was talking about actually electric vehicles. And as you know, we're putting a lot of funding from government to then stimulate private sector funding when it comes to developing the electric vehicle sector in the UK as well.
Just a couple of other things. Staying with London, Mayor Khan is suggesting all London schools should close. Indeed, in Greenwich Borough, a Labour borough, I need to point out, they will close as of tonight. Again, this speaks to your brief as Business Secretary. Do you think schools should be closing? And of course, what about childcare then?
No, look, we've always been very clear that we want schools to stay open. And, Nick, I want to thank teachers and head teachers, because 99% of schools have stayed open over the past months in England, and the vast majority of pupils are in school. We've made sure that there are home testing kits that have been made available to schools where, of course, there are infections. Additional testing kits have been sent out. But we will work, of course, the Department of Education will work with local authorities to see how we can support schools to stay open. But we also know that the best place for pupils, for young people, is to be in school. That's good for their education, good for their well-being.
And what might we hear on Wednesday? It is, of course, the review day for the various tiers. I understand and I read that you are very keen to try and keep London in Tier 2. Are you going to be successful?
Well, look, we've said that we will do this review this week. We've also said there are a number of criteria we will look at in terms of infection rates in an area, what the growth of that infection is, and actually the capacity of the local health services, particularly hospitals, to be able to cope with people going into hospital. So I'm not going to preempt any decisions, but we will look at this all in a very granular way and then come to a decision. Actually, not just on London. I know that's very relevant for your listeners, but actually, but national. Exactly.
Of course. OK, lastly, and you mentioned it, of course, football. I know you'll, like me, have studied the results. What do you take from Reading's performance on on Saturday, Secretary of State?
Well, what I would say to you, Nick, is that I think last time I was on, I said to you, we probably shouldn't have any more discussion about Reading. Every time we do, they drop down.
Up,
I know. I'm sorry.
You started it, Alok. I wasn't even going to test you on it.
Well, I can tell you
got the name of the operation wrong.
They are they are fifth in the table. When we started the discussion, they were at the top. We were at the top when we started.
And you got a 1-0 win with a last-minute goal. He's finally looked at the league table. Congratulations, Mr. Sharma. If I don't see you, have a happy Christmas, happy holiday, whatever it is you enjoy. Alok Sharma, thank you, Business Secretary, appearing here on LBC, where it's 9 o'clock and the news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's news